Chosen one, anchor your spirit to what I am about to say right now. That unfinished thing sitting in the back of your mind, the one you keep circling back to, the one that wakes you up before the sun rises. Stop pushing it to the side. God is not waiting anymore. The enemy has been working overtime this week for one reason, and one reason only. He knows that the moment you finish what God told you to start, everything shifts. Not gradually, completely. It all ends now. The procrastination, the paralysis, the 1,000 reasons you told yourself it was not the right time. But here is what you need to understand. It is not ending because circumstances finally aligned. It is ending because God has issued a command, and that command has your name on it. Think back to that moment this week when you sat down to do the work, opened the document, picked up the phone, pulled out the notebook, and then closed it. Put it down, told yourself tomorrow. You thought that was laziness. You thought that was weakness. You did not know it then, but that moment of hesitation is the last one heaven is going to allow, because the command has already been released. The mandate is already in motion. You did not find this recording by accident. The algorithm did not bring you here. God did. This is a divine appointment, scheduled before the foundations of the earth, timed to reach you at the exact moment the delay is being broken. Stay until the very last second of this message, because in the next few minutes, I am going to show you exactly why God is using the word urgency right now and what it means for your specific assignment. I am going to walk you through the spiritual audit of what happens when a chosen one delays divine work. Not to condemn you, but to wake you up. And at the end, I am going to give you the declaration that activates your next move and seals your commitment before heaven today. Do not click away. Your future self, the one standing on the other side of completed obedience, is begging you to stay. Because if you leave now, you walk back into the same loop that has been stealing your momentum for months. I know what the last 72 hours have felt like. The atmosphere has not just been heavy, it has been pressing. Like something is standing on your chest, demanding your attention, refusing to let you rest until you respond. Maybe you have been carrying a specific task, a project, a call you need to make, a message you need to send, a creative work sitting half-finished on your desk, and every time you approach it, something pulls you back. Distraction, doubt, exhaustion so deep it feels like it lives in your bones. Or maybe you woke up at 3 in the morning this week with a sharp clarity, a knowing, a voice inside you that said now, and by morning you had already talked yourself out of it again. You feel suspended, like you are standing at the entrance of the thing God told you to do, but your feet will not move. Not because you do not believe, but because the enemy has been whispering a very specific lie into the gap between your intention and your action. Listen to your thoughts right now. He is telling you that you are not ready yet, that the work needs to be more polished, more perfect, more prepared before it can go out. He is replaying every past attempt that did not land the way you hoped. Every time you tried and it fell short. Every voice that told you it was too much, too late, too small, too ordinary. The accuser is telling you that God cannot use what you have right now, that you need to wait until you become something more, and that the delay is actually wisdom. But I need you to hear what the scripture actually says about this moment. Ecclesiastes 11:4 says, "Whoever watches the wind will not plant. Whoever looks at the clouds will not reap." Listen to that warning. Whoever watches the wind will not plant. God is telling you directly that the one who waits for perfect conditions never moves. The one who keeps analyzing, keeps preparing, keeps watching, that person never harvests. And you were not created to watch. You were created to move. The enemy is trying to dress delay up as wisdom. He wants the waiting to feel spiritual, feel humble, feel responsible. But what you are experiencing right now is not holy preparation. It is divine urgency dressed in pressure, because God is done waiting for you to feel ready. You are not behind. You are not disqualified. You are not too broken or too inconsistent or too far from where you thought you would be by now. You are commissioned. The heaviness you feel is not the weight of unpreparedness. It is the weight of an assignment that has been sitting unclaimed for too long, pressing against the walls of your obedience, demanding to be released. You are not standing at the beginning of something terrifying. You are standing at the threshold of something that was already declared finished in heaven before you ever took the first step. The work does not need you to be perfect. It needs you to be present. It does not need your best version. It needs your obedient version, right now, today. That is not weakness. That is the strategy God has been building in you the entire time. Some messages don't just inform, they activate. If something stirred deep in your spirit just now, you may be ready to receive the Chosen One's blueprint. This sacred guide reveals the 8 divine patterns behind your calling, your suffering, and your destiny. It also comes with the full audiobook, so you can absorb it during prayer, rest, or quiet moments with God. And for those called to speak His truth, you'll also receive Activating Your Prophet Mantle, a powerful bonus ebook for those carrying a prophetic assignment. The link is in the first pinned comment, but only for a limited time. Now let that settle, because what I am about to walk you through is not theory. It is not a motivational framework designed to simply stir your emotions for a fleeting moment. This is a spiritual autopsy of the delay itself, a profound and precise dissection of the unseen forces and internal agreements that have held you captive. We are going beyond surface-level symptoms to excavate the root causes, the hidden currents that have prevented your movement. Once you see what has actually been happening beneath the surface of your hesitation, once the spiritual scales fall from your eyes and the truth illuminates the shadows, you will never look at your struggle, your waiting, or your calling the same way again. This isn't just information, it's revelation intended to break open the spiritual bedrock that has resisted your progress. The first thing you need to understand, with absolute clarity, is that procrastination, the kind a chosen one experiences, is not the same as ordinary laziness. Ordinary procrastination, the kind that might lead you to put off doing laundry or balancing a checkbook, is a habit, a comfort zone, a simple aversion to effort. It's often a matter of discipline, a common human frailty. What you have been living through, however, is an entirely different beast. It is a targeted attack. There is a profound distinction between someone who simply does not feel like doing the work, who lacks the internal drive for mundane tasks, and someone who picks up the very assignment God has laid in their spirit, feels the undeniable fire of it igniting in their hands, senses the divine breath of inspiration upon it, and then, inexplicably, with a deep, crushing and utterly inexplicable dread, puts it back down. That dread, that sudden onset of spiritual inertia, that suffocating heaviness, is not emanating from your own being. It is not a natural byproduct of your spirit or your innate disposition. It is being assigned to you. It is an external spiritual weight, a cloak of oppressive resistance cast upon you by forces that recognize the power you carry. The enemy, who is not foolish or wasteful, does not expend that level of focused, strategic interference, that kind of spiritual firepower, on people who do not carry something profoundly dangerous to his agenda. He does not dedicate his limited spiritual resources to ordinary delays or trivial setbacks. He reserves his heaviest pressure, his most cunning tactics, and his most potent assignments of dread for the kingdom-shifting, destiny-altering assignments that, once completed, will not merely solve a problem, but will shift entire atmospheres, awaken dormant generations, ignite revivals, and dismantle strongholds of darkness that have been entrenched and in place for years, even decades. Your delay, therefore, is an unwitting testament to the magnitude of your calling. Think about Moses standing at the precipice of the Red Sea. Picture the scene in your mind's eye with vivid clarity, the churning, fathomless expanse of water in front of him, a seemingly insurmountable barrier reflecting the bleak, unforgiving sky. Behind him, the dust cloud of Pharaoh's army, a relentless, vengeful force, growing larger and more menacing by the second, their chariots thundering, swords glinting in the desert sun. And caught agonizingly between these two inescapable forces, the people of God, only recently freed from centuries of brutal bondage, now trapped, crying out in terror and despair. Their pleas were not for divine intervention to cross the sea, but astonishingly, that they would rather return to Egypt, to the very chains, the very whips, the very dehumanization they had just miraculously been delivered from, than face the unknown, terrifying body of water standing between them and the promised land. What that excruciating moment reveals is something devastatingly true about the human spirit when it is under immense, overwhelming pressure. When the enemy cannot stop your departure from a place of bondage, when he cannot physically prevent your liberation, his next strategy is far more insidious. He tries to make the destination, the promised land, the very embodiment of your freedom, feel infinitely more terrifying, more dangerous, more daunting than the bondage you just escaped. He makes the water in front of you look deeper, darker, and more treacherous than the slavery, the familiar oppression behind you. He makes the open road, the path to your divine destiny, look less safe, less certain, less hospitable than the known, albeit painful cage you already understand. And so, in that moment of spiritual and physical squeeze, you pause, you hover, you reason away the divine impulse. You tell yourself, in 1,000 subtle whispers of self-deception, that a few more days of preparation, a few more layers of polish on your skills, a few more confirmations from the right people, perhaps a clearer sign from heaven itself, and then you will move. You convince yourself that prudence dictates this delay, when in reality it is a spiritual paralysis masquerading as wisdom. But here is where it goes deeper, where the truth cuts through the illusions, because the water, the barrier to your breakthrough, never parts before you step. That is the fundamental, often overlooked, and undeniably crucial part of the story that gets preached without the full, raw weight it truly deserves. God did not split the Red Sea while Moses stood on the shore deliberating, analyzing the situation from a safe distance, weighing his options, or waiting for a perfect meteorological forecast. He split it when Moses, in an act of profound and vulnerable obedience, stretched out his hand over the waters. Obedience first, miracle second. The divine sequence is inviolable. And the gap between those two sacred moments, the agonizing, faith-stretching gap between the moment Moses' hand was raised in raw trust and the instant the mighty waters began to recede, revealing a dry path, that gap, that crucible of uncertainty and faith, is precisely where most chosen ones abort their assignment. They stretch, they take that initial step of faith, they feel the current of divine momentum, but then the waters don't immediately react. The instant manifestation doesn't occur, the expected sign doesn't flash across the heavens. And so, they hesitate. They pull back, retracting their spiritual hand before the water even has a chance to move. They retreat to the shore, and in that retreat, they conclude, with a sigh of weary resignation, that it must have been a false start, that the confirmation they felt was not real, that maybe they misheard the divine instruction entirely, but they did not mishear. They just did not hold the stretch long enough. They let go of their faith just as the miracle was about to unfold, retreating from the threshold of breakthrough. And this leads us to something most people miss entirely, a consequence far more devastating than lost time or missed opportunities. The delay you have been experiencing, the stagnation in your calling, has not just been costing you precious time, a finite resource that can never be fully recovered. It has been costing you something far more profound, far more foundational. It has been costing you identity. Every day that an assignment goes unclaimed, every morning that the divine work sits untouched, every season that your unique contribution to the kingdom remains dormant, something vital and irreplaceable inside you quietly begins to shift. You do not merely fall behind on the task itself, accumulating spiritual backlog. More tragically, you begin to fall behind in your own understanding of who you truly are, in your grasp of the divine blueprint etched into your spirit. Because identity in the kingdom is not just a theological concept, a theoretical declaration. It is a lived reality, a truth that must be walked out, embodied and experienced. It is confirmed through movement, through the very act of stepping into your purpose. It is solidified through obedience, through the active, consistent yielding of your will to His. And when that movement stops, when the obedience is repeatedly deferred, when your spiritual muscles atrophy from inaction, the enemy, ever cunning, slides into that silence, into that vacuum of inaction, with a voice that is insidious precisely because it sounds so much like your own. It doesn't roar, it doesn't threaten, it whispers. It says, "Maybe this is not really what I was called to do after all." It suggests, "Perhaps I misread this divine impulse. It felt so real, but look, nothing has happened." It insinuates, "Maybe I am not the person for this. Perhaps someone else is more qualified, more ready, more anointed." And that voice, that gentle, reasoned whisper that mimics your inner dialogue, that functions like spiritual erosion, slowly but surely wearing away at your conviction, is the most dangerous weapon the accuser ever deploys. It doesn't aim to destroy you with a mighty blow. It seeks to dismantle you piece by piece, to corrode your divine self-perception until you abandon your post from within. And what is coming next will likely surprise you, because it always does, because it cuts to the core of where the true spiritual battle is being waged. Because the real war, the fundamental conflict that has defined your season of delay, was never actually over the task itself. It was never truly about the project, the message, the ministry, the business, or the creative endeavor. The real war, the battle that matters most in the spiritual realm, has always been over your belief in the one who received the assignment, over your conviction in your own divine commissioning, your spiritual authority, and your capacity to carry out what heaven has entrusted to you. The enemy understands that if he can undermine your identity, if he can sow seeds of doubt about who you are in Christ, the task becomes irrelevant. A weapon is useless if the warrior believes they cannot wield it. This is where David's story becomes more than mere inspiration. It transcends the realm of motivational anecdote and becomes precise, powerful instruction, a divine playbook for overcoming. Before David ever stepped onto that battlefield to face the towering, taunting Goliath, he had already faced the lion and the bear in private, solitary battles. But what the scripture does not dwell on long enough, what we often rush past in our eagerness for the dramatic climax, is the profound internal battle he fought and won long before those private victories. He was a shepherd boy, the youngest, the most overlooked, left in the fields while his older, stronger, more imposing brothers were presented before the prophet Samuel for anointing. He endured the sting of being deemed insignificant by his own father, bypassed by the prophet, a painful experience of perceived rejection and insignificance. And yet, when the moment came, when the entire army of Israel was paralyzed by fear, when the giant stood in the valley defying the armies of the living God, David did not say, "I need more time to prepare." He did not ask for a trial run, another season of polishing his slingshot skills. He did not hesitate to question his fitness or his qualifications. He walked with resolute steps directly toward what everyone else was retreating from, what seasoned warriors considered a death sentence. And the reason he could do that, the source of his unshakable courage, was not because he was born fearless, a genetic anomaly. It was because he had diligently practiced obedience, cultivated faithfulness, and honed his reliance on God in obscurity, in the unseen, uncelebrated moments of wrestling lions and bears, until his spirit recognized with absolute certainty that the sheer size of the opposition, the external magnitude of the threat, had absolutely nothing to do with the unwavering certainty of the divine mandate he carried. His private victories were the foundation of his public triumph. Your obscurity, those long unseen seasons, those quiet wilderness moments, have not been punishment for some unknown transgression. They have been, in the profound alchemy of divine wisdom, your most vital preparation. The unseen seasons of waiting, the private faithfulness when no human eye observed, the tedious, often unrewarding work you have done when no one was watching and no one was applauding, when the only witness was the living God that has been building something in you, forging a spiritual strength and character that cannot be manufactured in public, that cannot be bought with accolades or learned in a classroom. It has been cultivating a deep root system, a hidden reservoir of divine resilience. And now, in this precise, predestined moment, heaven is calling that something, that divinely forged character, that spirit-infused capacity forward. Not when you feel perfectly ready, for true readiness is often found in the surrender to divine strength. Now, not when the circumstances magically align, when all the puzzle pieces fall neatly into place. Now, because the mandate, the divine imperative, does not wait for your comfort level to catch up. It operates on immutable divine timing, on the kairos moments orchestrated by the creator of time itself. And divine timing is never late. It is always precisely on schedule, perfectly calibrated. But it is also never patient with those who, through fear or self-doubt, keep rescheduling it, deferring the divine appointment with their destiny. But let me challenge you with something, because this is the part that demands an uncompromising, unvarnished honesty. This is where the light of truth must penetrate the deepest recesses of your heart and expose the hidden motivations. You have been telling yourself, perhaps for months or even years, that the delay, the pause in your progress, is about the assignment itself. You rationalize that you are waiting on clarity, on more specific instructions from heaven. You believe you are waiting on resources, for the perfect funding, the ideal connections, the necessary tools to appear. You insist you are waiting on confirmation, another undeniable sign that this is truly God's will. You claim you are waiting on open doors for every obstacle to vanish without your effort. But if you are truly honest with yourself, and this is going to require a level of courageous, self-interrogating honesty that may feel uncomfortable, the delay is not really about the assignment at all. It is about what completing it will require you to become. It is about the transformation, the growth, the new demands, and the expanded identity that will inevitably follow the successful execution of your calling. Because finished things, completed work, launched projects, messages fully delivered, these invite scrutiny. They step out of the safe confines of potential and into the harsh, often unforgiving light of the world, where they get seen and judged and responded to, sometimes with praise, sometimes with criticism, sometimes with outright rejection. And there is a profound, often unacknowledged part of you that has decided, subtly and without full conscious awareness, that as long as the work remains unfinished, as long as the dream remains nebulous, you remain protected. If it never launches, it can never fail. If the message never goes out, no one can reject it. If the creative endeavor never sees the light of day, it can never be criticized. And so, the dream, the vision, the sacred calling stays safe, pristine, preserved in the future tense, untouched by the messy, vulnerable and often painful risk of the present reality. It's a golden cage perhaps, but a cage nonetheless. That, my friend, is not humility. True humility is the courage to step forward in utter reliance on God, knowing your own limitations, but trusting His infinite capacity to work through you. That is a fortress you have meticulously built brick by brick around your calling, not to honor God, but to protect yourself from the perceived cost of your own destiny, from the discomfort of growth, the vulnerability of exposure, and the weight of true spiritual authority. It's a self-imposed prison of potential, carefully constructed from fear. And coming up, stay with me, because there is one more layer beneath even that, a deeper, more hidden truth. And it is the layer that, once understood and addressed, breaks the cycle completely. Now, once you understand that profound truth, that your delay is often about who you fear becoming, you are truly ready for this final, critical insight. There is a version of the fear of failure that is overt, universally recognized, and often discussed. Everyone knows what that looks like. The dread of attempting something and falling short, of making an effort and achieving an undesirable outcome, of being exposed as inadequate. But there is another version of fear, one that is far more insidious, far more spiritually sophisticated, and therefore far more dangerous precisely because it hides in plain sight. And that is the fear of success. This is not the fear that you will try and fall short. It is the chilling, often unacknowledged fear that you will try, that you will step out, and it will actually work. It is the deep-seated apprehension that the assignment will not only be received, but celebrated. It is the quiet terror that the work will land with impact, resonating deeply with hearts and minds. It is the anxiety that the doors will indeed open, leading you to places you've only dared to dream of. It is the profound, unsettling recognition that the very life you have been asking God for, crying out for, praying for with all your heart, will actually become your reality. And this is terrifying to the old self, because that life, that breakthrough, that expanded reality, will also demand things from you that your current life, your comfortable stagnation, does not. It will demand a new, unwavering level of discipline, a rigorous commitment to daily spiritual practice. It will demand a terrifying new level of visibility, pulling you from the shadows of obscurity into the spotlight of influence. It will demand an uncomfortable new level of accountability. For every gift given, much is expected. And it will demand a deeper, more profound level of surrender. For true success in the kingdom is always about being a vessel, not a master. And the version of you that has grown comfortable, albeit painfully so, in the waiting, the version of you that has found a perverse safety in potential unrealized, is deeply afraid of what the version of you on the other side of breakthrough will be asked to carry, to sacrifice, and to become. But here is the part you probably did not expect, the spiritual revelation that cuts through all the layers of rationalization and self-deception. The true thing that has been blocking you, holding you captive in this cycle of delay, is not the enemy, though he certainly exploits it. It is not your past, though old wounds may have initially triggered it. It is not the people who doubted you, or the seasons that broke you, though their impact was real. The thing that has been blocking you, that has had a legitimate spiritual right to impede your progress, is an unchallenged agreement, a quiet, unspoken, often unconscious covenant you made with delay the very first time it saved you from something that felt dangerous, something vulnerable, something painful. Perhaps it saved you from criticism, from rejection, from the discomfort of growth, or the weight of responsibility. In that moment of perceived danger, you effectively gave delay a job. You deputized it. You told it, with the full power of your free will, to stand guard between you and the very thing God was calling you to do, the very destiny He had laid out for you. And it has been faithfully doing that job, diligently standing its post ever since. But here is the critical truth. It was never authorized by heaven. It was never God-given. It was a purely self-protective response, a survival mechanism born of fear that long ago outlived its original purpose and has now become a cage. And the profound reason nothing has shifted, why you've remained stuck despite your prayers and intentions, is because until you consciously, intentionally, and verbally revoke that agreement, until you dismantle that unspoken covenant, delay has a legal standing in your life. It has your permission, your spiritual authorization to operate. And God, who gave you the sacred gift of free will, who respects your choices even when they hinder your highest good, will not override what you yourself authorized. He waits for you to use the authority He already gave you to dismantle the things you unwittingly empowered. This is the moment. Right now. This is where you take back your spiritual authority and revoke it. You look at the unfinished work that stands as a silent testament to your deferred calling. You look at the sacred call you have been avoiding, the divine impulse you have consistently pushed to the back burner. You look at the message that has been sitting half-written in your journal, the project collecting dust in the corner of your mind, the assignment gathering spiritual weight in the atmosphere, humming with unfulfilled potential, waiting for your physical body and your human will to finally catch up with what your spirit already intimately knows. And you say out loud with conviction, with authority, with every fiber of your being, I revoke the agreement. I cancel the covenant with delay. I withdraw my permission from everything that has been standing between my divine intention and my decisive action. And then you move. Not perfectly, not confidently, for confidence will grow in the doing. Not fully prepared, for true preparation is often found in the act of stepping out. You move obediently, because obedience, raw and unadorned, is the only currency that releases heaven's next unfolding move in your life. It is the key that unlocks the floodgates of divine provision and power. Place your hand on your heart and declare this with me. I revoke every agreement I made with delay, with fear, with the lie that I am not ready. I break every covenant with procrastination that I made in moments of self-protection. I declare that my assignment is not mine to hold. It belongs to the kingdom, and I release it now. I am not waiting for perfect conditions. I am moving in obedient faith. I am stepping over the threshold that fear built, and I am finishing what God started in me. The work goes out, the call gets made, the message gets sent, the project gets completed. Not tomorrow, not when I feel more prepared. Today, because heaven has already declared it finished, and I am simply walking into what was already written. I am commissioned, I am covered, I am moving, and nothing, not the enemy, not my own hesitation, not the weight of every failed attempt before this one. Nothing stops the obedience that begins right now. I am the chosen one who actually finishes, and it starts today.